Hello everyone, this is Dawn over at Plot Chronicles. It's Monday, which is favorite author day, so let me get started. I'm not sure how often I'll be able to do favorite author day. I might run out of authors, and some of these I may have spoken about before, but I want to briefly tell you why this particular person is my favorite author. I recently read a book by her, what I like about her, and how many years I've been reading her books. So, the favorite author today, one of them, and guess what? It's not thrillers because not all the books I read are thrillers. Its favorite author is Danielle Steel. I do really enjoy it. I just recently read a book called Trial by Fire, which I'll tell you about in a moment, but I'm going to briefly tell you why she's one of my favorite authors. Now, I was born in '65. I started reading adult books in the late 1970s, and I remember the very first book I ever read of hers was The Promise. I've read almost, not all, but I've read most of Danielle Steel books, and The Promise is still my very favorite book of hers, and it was written in the late 70s. Let me know if any of you have ever read it before. I really liked it. Maybe I could review it on the channel. I mean, it is an older book. I'm not sure. I didn't see it on the Libby app, but I have to say I really like it, and they did make a movie out of it. A lot of Danielle Steel's books have been made movies. She writes mostly, I would say, romance type books and life books. The reason I like her are several reasons. Number one, her books are so easy to read. Number two, her books they're not overly long. And number three, the characters, she does a really good job. You get to know the characters. And some of the characters that you might not really like at the beginning of the book, sometimes they turn out being good characters at the end. And so I like how she wraps everything up at the end, so you know, it's not like have you ever read a book where there's an open ending and you're not really sure what's going to happen? With her endings, you know how everything kind of wraps up, and I really like that. So I just find her books easy to read. It's a lighter read because I read some books that are kind of what I call heavy reading. You know, they've got heavy information, maybe some things that are triggering. Her books overall are pretty light for the most part. Now, let me tell you what this book was about that I read. It was called Trial by Fire. And in the book, and Danielle used to, when she was a young girl in real life, she spent a lot of time in France. And so I noticed that she really loves a lot, you know, talking about France a lot. But in the book, the character, she had a French mother, an American father, and they owned a perfume business. And so she ended up being the owner of that business. Now Danielle ended up getting, the character, I think it's Dahlia, if I'm not mistaken, if how to pronounce her name. She ended up getting married and having 4 children, just to the love of her life. Anyway, he ended up passing away in an accident, and I don't think I'm giving you any spoilers to that. So in the story, she is going to go and visit, you know, all around the United States. She ends up in California visiting some of the stores where they sell their perfume, ends up getting caught kind of in the wildfires out there, and it's a story of that. And then she meets someone out there, and then also it's the stories of her children's lives. They're adult children now, but you know, how they're navigating life. I definitely think it's a good read. It's easy to follow along. It's interesting. I really enjoyed it. I don't think I've ever read a bad book by her. I'd love to know if any of you guys have read her before, and if so, you know, what's one of your favorite books that she's written? I'd love to know about that. By the way, come back tomorrow because the next day I'm going to do a review about March. I'm just going to give you the basic review about how many books I read and how many genres. And then the day after that, I'm going to tell you my favorite books for March. So please stay tuned for that. Love you, appreciate your support, and I sure hope to see you on the next video. Bye, everybody.